Good morning, students. So in this video I will be taking the next topic of this neurological disorders in the children. It is hydrocephalus. So what is hydrocephalus? So hydrocephalus, it is a condition in which there is altered production of CSF. Okay, there is altered production of CSF as well as absorption of CSF. Okay, so in this usually what is that? So in hydrocephalus it is nothing but there is altered production of CSF as well as absorption of CSF. Okay, there is altered production of CSF as well as absorption of CSF. So normally this is usually seen that there will be abnormal increase in CSF volume. Okay, so in this usually what is happening, there is abnormal increase in the CSF volume in the intracranial cavity. Okay, in the intracranial cavity, that usually leads to enlargement of the head. Okay, that usually leads to enlargement of the head in the infancy. So what is that? Hydrocephalus, it is nothing but altered production of CSF or absorption of CSF. Okay, it is nothing but altered production of CSF or absorption of CSF. Okay, altered production of CSF or absorption of CSF. So this is usually seen that there is abnormal increase in the CSF volume. Okay, there is abnormal increase in the CSF volume that is usually seen in the intracranial cavity, and this usually leads to enlargement of the head. So what is hydrocephalus? So hydrocephalus, it is usually a condition where there is altered production and absorption of CSF fluid. That is usually seen that there will be abnormal increase in the CSF volume in the intracranial cavity, that usually leads to enlargement of the head. Okay, that usually leads to enlargement of the head. So that is usually there. And next is usually the total volume of CSF. Okay, the total volume of CSF, it is about 100 to 150 ml. Okay, the total volume of CSF, it is 100 to 150 ml. So that is usually seen. So this in this usually CSF, what is happening, about 20 ml of CSF. Okay, about 20 ml of CSF it is secreted in an hour. Okay, after 20 ml of CSF it is secreted in an hour. That is approximately 500 ml per day. Okay, so that is about 20 ml of CSF it is secreted for 1 hour. That is approximately 500 ml per day. And the rest of the CSF it is absorbed in the arachnoid villi. Okay, the rest of the CSF it is absorbed in the arachnoid villi into the venous channel and sinus. Okay, into the venous channel and sinus. Okay, the rest of the CSF it is absorbed by the arachnoid villi of the venous channel and the sinus. If it is not absorbed properly, then hydrocephalus occurs. Okay, if it is not absorbed properly, then this one, what is that? Hydrocephalus occurs. So that is usually about this thing. So normally what is happening in this? So that is hydrocephalus, it is the condition where there is altered production and absorption of CSF. Okay, where there is altered production and absorption of CSF, and there is abnormal increase in the CSF fluid in the intracranial cavity, that usually leads to enlargement of the head. So normally the CSF fluid total volume of the CSF fluid, it is 100 to 150 ml. Okay, total of CSF it is 100 to 150 ml. So in case of like about 20 ml of CSF, okay, about 20 ml of CSF it is produced for 1 hour, then it completes, like it accounts for 500 ml per day, and the remaining of the CSF it is usually absorbed by the arachnoid villi of the sinus as well as the venous channel. If it is not absorbed properly, then it usually leads to hydrocephalus. So next is types of hydrocephalus. So hydrocephalus, it is classified according to the flow of CSF. In the first thing is it is classified according to the flow of CSF into the brain and spinal cord. It is usually classified according to the flow of CSF in the brain and spinal cord. Okay, flow of CSF in the brain and spinal cord. It is classified into two: communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. So that is, hydrocephalus can be divided into two according to the flow of CSF into the brain and spinal cord. It is usually communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. So what is communicating hydrocephalus now? So communicating hydrocephalus, if there is no blockage in the normal flow of CSF, okay, there is no blockage in the normal flow of CSF, so that is usually they will be having failure to absorb. Okay, so flow there is no blockage, but absorption there is having problem. Okay, so they will not be able to absorb the CSF, that is usually seen in case of sinus thrombosis. In the definition on the shoulder, it is absorbed in the arachnoid villi of the sinus. Okay, the CSF it is absorbed in the arachnoid villi of sinus. So if there is sinus thrombosis, okay, if there is sinus thrombosis, so then that is usually, if there is sinus thrombosis, usually what is happening, if there is sinus thrombosis, then they will not be able to absorb properly. Okay, then they will not be able to absorb properly. So that is usually about this communicating hydrocephalus. Okay, communicating hydrocephalus. So next is non-communicating hydrocephalus. So in case of non-communicating hydrocephalus, so in this type there is obstruction. Okay, there is obstruction in the foramina of Luxca. Okay, there is obstruction in the foramina of Luxca and the ventricular system. Okay, there is obstruction in the foramina of Luxca and ventricular system. So that is, it might be, this obstruction can be partial or complete. Okay, this obstruction can be partial or complete, and this obstruction is occurred due to this obstructive lesions. Okay, due to obstructive lesions, that is non-communicating hydrocephalus. There is no communication like how CSF fluids flow or something. So only there is obstruction in the, at any level. There is obstruction in the foramina of Luxca and the ventricular system. So that is non-communicating hydrocephalus. So in case of this hydrocephalus, it is divided into two according to the flow of CSF to the brain and spinal cord. And this is usually seen that it can be due to like communicating, it is usually communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. Communicating hydrocephalus, in this type there is no blockage in the flow of CSF, but absorption is obstructed. Okay, absorption is obstructed. And in case of non-communicating hydrocephalus, here you can see that they will be having obstruction at any level. Okay, they will be having obstruction at any level, that is of the foramina, Luxca and ventricular system. Okay, foramina, Luxca and ventricular system. So that is usually about this communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. So this, and also hydrocephalus can also again be classified into two. Okay, it can also be again classified into two based on the occurrence. Okay, hydrocephalus can also again be classified into two based on their occurrence. So that is congenital and hydrocephalus. The other is acquired hydrocephalus. Okay, congenital hydrocephalus and acquired hydrocephalus. So that is, hydrocephalus can be again divided into two based on their occurrence. So it includes congenital hydrocephalus and this one, what is it? Acquired hydrocephalus. So in case of this congenital hydrocephalus, it occurs at birth. Okay, it usually occurs at birth, and this might be caused due to, like in case of if there is any intrauterine infection. Okay, if there is any intrauterine infection, or if there is congenital brain tumor. Okay, congenital brain tumor. So when there is congenital brain tumor, it starts it usually shows obstruction in the CSF flow. Okay, there is obstruction in the CSF flow. So that is usually there. And next, in case of intracranial hemorrhage. Okay, intracranial hemorrhage during delivery. Okay, in case of intracranial hemorrhage during delivery, or if there is congenital defect in the arachnoid villi. Okay, if there is congenital defect in the arachnoid villi, because if there is defect in the arachnoid villi, it will not be able to absorb CSF properly. Okay, it will not be able to absorb CSF properly. So that is usually about this congenital hydrocephalus. So in case of this congenital hydrocephalus, it usually occurs during birth. Okay, it usually occurs during birth. The cause might be due to any intrauterine infection or congenital brain tumor that usually obstructs the CSF flow, or in case of if there is any congenital defect in the arachnoid villi. So that is usually about this congenital hydrocephalus. So next is acquired hydrocephalus. Okay, next is acquired hydrocephalus. So in case of acquired hydrocephalus, it occurs during lifetime. Okay, it usually occurs during lifetime. So that is usually it occurs during lifetime, and it is occurring mainly due to any infection such as meningitis and encephalitis. Okay, mainly due to any infection such as meningitis and encephalitis, or due to any trauma, that is brain injury, head injury, or intracranial hemorrhage. Okay, in case of intracranial hemorrhage, so that is usually there, or in case of thrombosis. Okay, or in case of thrombosis. So that is usually about this acquired this one, what is that? Hydrocephalus. Acquired hydrocephalus occurs in any life, it occurs during a lifetime. It causes, it can be due to, like it might be due to infections such as encephalitis and meningitis. It can be due to trauma, that is birth injury, head injury, or intracranial hemorrhage. It can be due to hypervitaminosis or any connective tissue disorders, or in case of thrombosis. So that is usually about this classification of hydrocephalus. So classification, first is two types, which is mainly based on the CSF flow to brain and spinal cord. Next, it is mainly communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. Communicating flow is not disturbed, but absorption is disturbed. And in this, usually what happens in this non-communicating hydrocephalus, obstructed. Okay, there is some obstruction due to lesions. And next is hydrocephalus can also be classified into two based on their occurrence, that is congenital, which occurs during birth, acquired, which occurs during lifetime. So that is usually about this classification of hydrocephalus. The next is causes. So in case of this causes, it is usually congenital. I already told it might be congenital or acquired, or in few cases it is unknown. Okay, so this causes, it can be due to congenital, acquired, or in few cases it can be due to, it might be due to unknown. So that is usually about this causes. So in case of premature infants, okay, in case of premature infants, that is mainly occurring, this hydrocephalus mainly occurs due to meningitis or due to subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay, so that is in case of premature infants. Okay, in case of premature infants, it might be due to meningitis or it might be due to subarachnoid hemorrhage. Okay, subarachnoid hemorrhage. So that is usually about this thing. So in older children it is usually acquired, that is due to any infection like meningitis, tumor, or in case of trauma. So that is usually about this causes. So causes, it is mainly due to congenital, acquired, or in few cases it is unknown. And in premature infants it is mainly occurring due to subarachnoid hemorrhage as well as meningitis. And older children it can be due to trauma, tumor. So that is usually about this causes of hydrocephalus. So next is pathophysiology. So in case of this pathophysiology, the ventricles are dilated. Okay, at the beginning the ventricles are dilated. When the ventricles are dilated by distension, okay, when the ventricles are dilated by distension, it usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, it usually leads to increased intracranial pressures. Okay, when the ventricles are dilated. Okay, when the ventricles are dilated by distension. Okay, when the ventricles are dilated by distension, that usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, that usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. So when there is increased intracranial pressure, okay, when there is increased intracranial pressure, that usually leads to thickening of cerebral cortex and cranial bones. Okay, that usually leads to thickening of cerebral cortex and cranial bones. So what is that? When the ventricles are dilated, okay, when the ventricles are dilated by distension, okay, when the ventricles are dilated by distension, that usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, that usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. So when there is this intracranial pressure increases, okay, when the intracranial pressure increases, that leads to thickening of the cerebral cortex and cranial bone. So once this cerebral cortex and cranial bones is thickened, okay, once this cerebral cortex and cranial bone is thickened, that leads to epidermal lining of ventricles will be disrupted. Okay, the epidermal lining of the ventricles will be disrupted. Okay, the epidermal lining of the ventricles will be disrupted. That usually leads to, when there is disruption, edema occurs. When there is disruption, edema occurs, and due to this there will be bulging of the third ventricles. Okay, there will be bulging of the third ventricle that compresses the optic nerve. Okay, there will be bulging of the third ventricle that compresses the optic nerve. Okay, that compresses the optic nerve. And then they will be having atrophy of the choroid plexus. Okay, they will be having atrophy of the choroid plexus, that leads to cortical atrophy. Okay, that usually leads to cortical atrophy. So that is usually seen in this, is that mainly it is seen that it might be due to like ventricles are dilated. Okay, ventricles are dilated by distension. Okay, ventricles are dilated by distension, and there is increased intracranial pressure. Okay, when ventricles are dilated to distension, increased intracranial pressure. When pressure is increased, the cranial bones and the cerebral cortex thickens. Okay, the cranial bone and the cerebral cortex thickens. When there is thickening, the epidermal lining of the ventricles are disrupted. When there is disruption, edema occurs. When the edema is occurring, and then the third ventricle gets bulged, and due to this what happens? It compresses the optic nerve. When the optic nerve is compressed, choroid plexus starts atropic. Okay, atrophy of choroid plexus, and when there is atrophy of choroid plexus, that usually leads to cortical atrophy. Okay, that usually leads to cortical atrophy. So that is mainly, it is usually seen that it is mainly due to ventricles when it is dilated by distension. Intracranial pressure increases. When intracranial pressure increases, thickening of the cerebral cortex as well as the cranial bones. And when it is usually thickened, the epidermal lining of the ventricles get disrupted. When it is disrupted, edema occurs. When the edema occurs, the third ventricle starts compressing down or bulging downward, which compresses the optic nerve. Then they will be having choroid plexus will be atrophy of choroid plexus, that usually leads to cortical atrophy. That usually leads to cortical atrophy. So the meaning will be in the next video.